We're live. We're back. Welcome back to another week of this week in events. Hello, how are you, James?
Very well. Lovely to see your happy, smiling face as we get towards the end of another week in COVID lockdown.
Oh goodness, I can't believe another week has gone by. It's like my
Yeah.
life is racing past so fast. I'm sort of trying to hold on as you know, as time goes so quickly. It's crazy. So anyway, remind me, what are we up to this week?
Well, this week it was pretty action packed. We're going to have talk with John de Mato, who's a photographer specialized in working with speakers, thought leaders, experts, authors. Then we're going to be talking about this idea about how to stand out in a crowded market. Maria very smartly thought this kind of idea about branding and standing out. They can link really well together. So we're going to talk about that. And then finally, we'll come to our tools of the week, our little segment as well. If you're just joining us here for the very first time at This Week in Events, welcome. And please make sure that you go and subscribe. You can go to thisweekinevents.com and you can subscribe on your different players and different ways that you do that. And you can also, if you leave your email address there, you'll get all the show notes of this show and previous shows as well. So shall we get into our first part of the show?
Yes, introduce our guest.
Yeah. So John de Mato is a branded lifestyle photographer who partners with thought leaders and high-level entrepreneurs and speakers to create high-volume libraries to get them visibility they deserve. More than just a photographer, John sets his clients for success beyond the portrait session by coaching them on how to best leverage their image content for their websites, social channels, blogs, publications, advertisements, and various other needs. And I know pivot has been the most overused word of probably of 2020, but he has a fascinating pivot as it relates to the speaking business. So, John, welcome to This Week in Events.
Well, thank you for having me, Maria and James. How are you?
Very good, very good. Now you're over there in sunny, cold New York City, I believe.
Yeah, it's getting too cold. It's becoming an actual November, and I'm not that psyched about it. So, I don't know. But it is what it is.
Now we always see each other in the summer because I'm usually in New York in the summer for different events,
Yeah.
and we met. So Maria doesn't know this, maybe other people don't know this. John, you and I met. We did one of your branded lifestyle photo sessions in New York. I think we nearly got arrested at one point, but that's a completely different story. But we got some great photos. We got some great photos out of that session, and they've been used everywhere. I think I sent you one the other day. It was from I did a thing from McDonald's. It's massive. So your stuff's getting used all the time. The shoots I did with you, but you had this real speciality of working with top speakers, thought leaders, experts, and then you were doing really well. And then suddenly this COVID thing hit. So take us on the journey. What happened to your business, which probably happened to come up a lot of our businesses as speakers and speaker bureaus when things hit?
Well, when your business is affected, my business is affected. So immediately in March, when everything shut down, it torpedoed the rest of my year as I knew it. So there was a bit of a struggle there. And then I got sick with COVID, and that was fun.
You were very sick because I remember speaking around about that time with you, and you were very, very sick.
Yeah, I mean, not to the point that I had to go to the hospital, but it was a combination of lung issues, breathing, energy, but more importantly and more impactful, it was the mental and emotional piece. It was pretty dark because I was pretty scared because it was at the beginning and we didn't know what was going on, and I thought my lungs were gonna disintegrate, so I wasn't quite sure. But fortunately, in the midst of all of that, I'm a photography sponsor with the NSA NYC, and they put on a virtual event in April, and instead of obviously doing something in person, and rather than just going on to do my usual, I go to their chapter events and I capture the moments that happen there. Obviously that didn't happen. So when I logged on to the Zoom event, I'm watching it and I just felt really horrible. I was still getting over things, and I just decided to feel better, to feel useful, to do something. I picked up my camera and I snapped some photos of the laptop, and, I looked at them, realized they weren't so bad. And I shot the whole shot the whole program for about 2-3 hours, and next day made a post. From that one post, it was shared in 2 different places by fellow NSA members, and the next thing you know, I had a virtual photography business, and that was that. Out of nowhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So cool. And the photos are great, aren't they? They really are good.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I had no idea it was going to be a thing until it became a thing, and here we are.
So tell me that, how does the process work though? How does it work? So if somebody now says to you, I would like some virtual photography, what happens? Take me through it.
Well, the first step is to figure out what exactly they do virtually. What is their, what are the services that they provide? Is it webinars? Are they keynotes? Are you doing masterminds? Are you doing some other different types of online? Do you have online program like videos? And basically what we're trying to figure out in the strategy call is all of those different types of pieces to your online business. And then we figure out the different types of shots that you want. Like, for example, this shot of Aaron King, full screen speaker mode. See, these are very important for speakers because it puts you front and center. Then there are other types of shots like the gallery mode, or as I call it, the Brady Bunch. There's Vin, another full screen. And then this type of shot with Marquessa Petway, the Zoom Queen. She was actually one of the people that helped launch my virtual photography business with her promotion of my work. She was so gracious in doing that. But this type of photo also is important because of it shows that there's an audience, but yet you're still in speaker mode, so that you get the film strip at the top plus the person front and center. So you get a real vibe for the event itself. And the real goal for all of these photos, regardless of the screen orientation, because I also do side-by-side mode with slides, or if people use digital whiteboards or any of that kind of stuff. The goal is to create a portfolio of virtual images that illustrates the experience that your audience would have watching you on a screen. And secondly, it also provides my clients with the opportunity to show people who are hiring speakers, be it bureaus or organizations or some private companies that are looking for people to come in and speak to their teams, the fact that you actually do this stuff on virtual. So it provides a level of credibility.
I love that. Those photos are amazing. I'm amazed at the quality of them, without having sort of any reflection I've tried to take photos of the television screen in the past and it hasn't worked. So obviously there's a huge talent in that.
Well,
James is sharing photos of himself again.
Yeah, there you go. But the thing I always found fascinating with your work, let me just show this up here again. And this very first photo, I just want to show, which is Pia. This is how actually I learned about your work. It wasn't through your virtual stuff. It was through this stuff. And you capture people, you capture the personality. So as well as all the tech stuff, which is fantastic, so the client can see what you're doing, you're trying to capture that essence, that personality. Like, I've never met Pia in person. I've spoken to her after this, but I almost like seeing that photo. I feel like I got a sense of her personality. Likewise, like with Erin, even if you don't know Erin, you know the kind of personality that she's gonna be as well. So I think that's one of the key things. Obviously, you brought from that world of the lifestyle branded photography, is really understanding like how to get that essence of someone, and then how to relay that to a client in the kind of virtual sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. You got the T-shirt.
Yeah. But no, the way that I shoot one thing is the way that I shoot everything. It could be a branded lifestyle portrait session. It could be a live event. It could be virtual. It could be my friend's kid's first birthday party. It doesn't matter. I treat everything with the same mindset, which is to capture emotion, to capture the moment as it happens, to capture an honest look into what's going on in front of my camera. And that's the kind of stuff that my clients need, because they're in the relationship building business. and regardless of whatever their space of expertise is, they're creating relationships with their audience in order to nurture them, to get them to a point where, it leads to more work. So when you post photos that have a lot of expression, a lot of confidence, they're flattering, yet they're positioning you as a superhero, yet you're also relatable at the same time to the people looking at the photos. When you mash all of that together with images that span the emotional spectrum, that's when you have a very powerful arsenal of image assets to be able to, create the type of attention that you deserve for your work.
Fantastic, fantastic. Something I noticed, because I've been playing about looking at your website, you have a very good website. You actually put out there quite clearly what your pricing is, what your packages are, and what your pricing is. I feel that's quite unusual. And when I mentioned that to you when we were talking earlier, you said you didn't think it was unusual, but I find it unusual when people actually put the price. So what's your philosophy behind that? What's your thinking, your strategy?
My thinking behind it is that we're all busy people. We all have a lot of things to do, and there's only so much time in a day. And one of the ways that I help create a win-win qualification type of scenario is by putting up my prices, because they don't want to talk to someone that they're uncomfortable paying a rate to, that's too out of their budget. And I don't want to talk to people that aren't willing to pay the fees that I'm charging for my services. So if that number is smacked right in your face, right on that website, the moment that you hit that services page, then that really helps that process and really keeps everything smooth, and people can make quick decisions, and they'll decide whether or not to pick up the phone and call.
So
And you
Maria, do
also
you think our speakers should do that as well? Because that sounds quite scary,
well.
putting your prices up on your website.
Well, it's interesting because there's a huge debate within the speaker bureau world. Do you put fees on or don't you put fees on? Some bureaus do, some bureaus don't, and it is it's a difficult one. I personally like to have a range of fees. I think it's important to know, because it's like when you're going to buy a house, you've got a budget to buy a house. You're not going to go and look at every single house. You've got to have that. So I feel you should have fees, but I know a lot of my colleagues don't agree with that, and so they have a different point of view. So maybe we might have to pick that up as a different topic at some time and get people's different points of views. But I was going to say to John, I think your fees are incredibly great value for what you deliver. So I know you're going to put them up. So if people book with you now, will they get them at the price they're on the website now, or are you putting them up as soon as we finish this conversation?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I could be not. It's getting close to the holiday season, so yeah, probably.
Fantastic,
but obviously,
fantastic.
people just the end product, I guess, people see are those shots that you send to the speaker, and then go and share them in different places. But tell us about, I think Maria was just asking this question a little bit earlier there about the process. Let's say if I'm speaker Sue Blogs coming to you, I've been doing some virtual speeches, I want some great photography to show the kind of thing that I do. What's the process look like?
The process for virtual?
Yeah, for working with you to get to get to that final stage where we have those photos. Where does it start? Is you just book a time, or is there any work that has to be done beforehand?
We do, as I was mentioning before, it starts in the strategy call. It starts with figuring out what they need and what they're looking to do to promote their stuff. And then once that happens, once we get through that piece, I'll know all of the specifics, how many different outfits they're going to change into. If it's a stage, that's the other thing I didn't mention before. It could either be coverage of an actual live event, in which you just send me a link and I show up and I cover it as if it were an in-person event, or we can further strategize on creating a shot sheet and a rundown for our time together to do a staged event, which may or may not include a curated audience. It may or may not include slides. It may or may not include props in the background, like a flip chart, or maybe changing the backgrounds, kind of like what we were doing with you, James, when we did the virtual session the last time. It basically boils down to ultimately figuring out how people present themselves on the screen, what exactly they're selling, and if whether or not they want a social media strategy in addition to photos for their website or just photos for their website. Those variables will help determine which of the three services for virtual photos that really would fit their need.
I imagine you probably have to advise them as well on their lighting and on their cameras and their positioning and everything too, so that you get the best shots. Or are most of them quite well versed in this?
No. No.
I knew you were going to say that.
The good news is that I have a television background, so video is something, and setting up for basically this would be referred to as a stand-up in television parlance, where it's a direct address to camera. And yeah, I've had to massage some things. We've done some furniture moving, we've done some lighting adjustments, we've done some background changes, decluttering. There's a lot involved, and the thing that is tough about it is I'm not physically in the room to make the changes, which is really difficult. But over the 142 of these events that I've shot in the past 8-9 months, you get the hang of it after a while. So, and you also get a sense of the person's personality, sensibilities, what they'll respond to when I'm talking to them in the strategy call. So I'll just talk to them in that way to kind of shepherd them through the process, since I'm not there to help.
And what are you seeing now? Sorry, Maria, carry on,
Jane,
please.
You carry on.
No, I was just going to ask you, John, what are you seeing now? Because obviously a lot of speakers are starting to get booked again for in-person events, maybe from May, June onwards next year. Are you starting to see those back to the traditional on-stage bookings start to happen again, or the kind of branded photography that you were kind of known for?
Well, right now I'm kind of still getting some virtual stuff with people, as well as an uptick slightly in the amount of branded lifestyle portraits. You know, they're dribbling in slowly, because here in the US it's still, you know, as is the rest of the world with the resurgence of COVID, we're treading lightly. But you know, at the end of the day, I'm just happy to be able to pick up a camera. So if I'm shooting a screen or a human being, I'm in person, I'm there. I'm ready.
So what I was going to ask actually was, has this opened up an international market for you because of the fact that actually you don't need to travel to do it?
Oh, I've been all over the world on my laptop. All over the world. I've been to Australia about 8 to 10 times. I've been to Malta and Japan and Canada, all over the place. In Mexico.
And no stamps.
Yeah.
No stamps in the passport.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, I need like a virtual passport so I can start getting some cool ink in there. But you know, it's been interesting because of that reality. This never occurred to me before all of this happened. And the ironic part is, speakers and trainers and other experts, they've been leveraging Zoom and other teleconferencing platforms for years. They've had online programs for years and masterminds, and at no point did it occur to me that, hey, maybe it would be cool if you did this thing. It took a pandemic to knock some sense into me.
Well, I think we've got some questions here. Please, anyone that has any questions for John, we've got a couple of minutes left here. Mark Prensky, who's a speaker from California, just asking, are you capturing with a camera pointed at the screen versus a screen capture? Are you using a screen capture software, or are you actually using a physical camera?
It is impossible to screen capture what I'm doing because of the fact that I'm leveraging the outdoor space. It's with my Nikon. It's with me. It's the laptop on a folding table in different rooms of my apartment, and I'm just basically shooting the screen as if it were a human being in the room.
And you probably have the most famous living room in the speaking business now. I've said
that to a couple of people. It's actually quite funny. Yeah, my blinds. When I posted the Wall Street Journal photo, a friend of mine said, "The infamous de Mato blinds."
You've become famous. But actually, this is a good point. I mean, and if anyone's watching this just now thinking, okay, what's the value in bringing someone like John rather than doing stuff myself? So that John just mentioned, I got a New York Times, a Wall Street Journal thing last week, and it was myself and 4 other speakers were interviewed as part of this piece. And so they could have chosen from any of our photos to use as the main shot. They ended up using my shot because it just told the story better that they were trying to tell. And this is something I learned from the music industry. I would always go to these music festivals and see the pamphlets or the posters, and it wasn't necessarily the most famous artist that got on the front of that poster. It was the one who had the most like arresting, remarkable imagery and shot. So if you are watching this just now, like, why should you bring in someone like John? Sometimes if you're at conferences, just getting your image a little bit further forward than maybe some other speakers is quite a useful thing.
Speaking directly to that, James, one of the someone had asked me that, why do I need to invest in what you do? And my answer is, well, it's kind of, think of it this way. A screenshot, or not even necessarily a screen capture, but like I don't know where my phone is, but an iPhone shot, just point it right at the screen. That'll archive the event just fine. That's great. But when you have a professional photographer shooting the screen, leveraging aesthetics and lighting and composition and perspective, and of course timing, because you're speaking on a screen, which is even harder to capture than in person, you're actually capturing the moment. You're capturing an essential moment in your business that gives you the opportunity to present yourself in a much more elevated way than just archiving the event.
Well, that's a great point to kind of leave our conversation on. John, thank you so much. Where should people go if they want to check out? Maria's been mentioning your website. What's the name of the website?
It's very complicated. It's johndemato.com. You might want to write that down before you forget it.
And DEMATO, not as DIMAT. So johndemato.com, and we'll put in the show notes. John, thank you so much for coming on, sharing with us all about virtual photography and its impact they can have on speakers and their speaking business. And look forward to hopefully seeing you in New York City, maybe a little bit of Central Park photography at some point.
Looking forward to it, James. Thanks. And thank you, Maria.
I'm coming too. I'm coming to New York too.
You're coming with.
Thank you. I am.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Maria, maybe that should,
bigger than you.
Maybe that should be our holiday. We should go for our shopping trip when all this COVID stuff finishes. We can go and get a photo shoot. This Week in Events photo shoot at the same time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really cool. I love that. I think it's brilliant. So we're going to follow on from that, aren't we? Because I mean, what John has done is unique. He's stand out. He's found something very different, and we thought we'd relate that to speaking.
Yeah, it's this idea about how, in a really crowded market, photography is obviously a really crowded market, as is speaking. How do you stand out? John has been able to stand out in his market by doing something very specific and really very valuable to his clients as well. So, Maria, before we get into the speakers, how do speakers stand out? How do speaker bureaus stand out from each other?
That's interesting. Actually, do you want to mention our sponsor while I think of an answer to that?
Good point. As we're talking about speaker bureaus, let's thank our sponsors, who is a speaker bureau, London Speaker Bureau. London Speaker Bureau is the only global speaker bureau. They have offices in 18 countries around the world. And if you're watching this just now and you're thinking, hey, we need to bring in a fantastic keynote speaker or someone to do boardroom advisory, then go to www.londonspeakerbureau.com. And thank you once again to the folks at London Speaker Bureau.
Thank you. Wonderful. So you asked me the million-dollar question. How do speaker bureaus differentiate? How do they stand out? And what you might not be aware of is that every speaker bureau, you probably do because you know about speakers, but every speaker bureau tends to have a sort of a speciality, an area that they focus on rather than others. So what happens is you attract the right customers because of the way you project. And also the kind of speakers that you have. So London Speaker Bureau, as an example, is very much in the thought leadership space. And the kind of speakers that they work with are sort of the big thinkers. They're the strategists, they're the futurists, they're the economists. And so it's a certain positioning that we have. There are other bureaus that will be focusing on maybe on entertainment or comedians or after dinner. There'll be other bureaus that will focus very much on the sports, perhaps, and performance and those areas. So each bureau tends to have their own areas of speciality, and their people tend to be more interested in those particular topics. And as you work in those areas, you end up going deeper and deeper and deeper into those areas. The other thing that makes so London Speaker Bureau unique is the international aspect. I don't think there is a more international bureau in the world because of the 18 offices, but also because the focus has always been about international, about bringing different thought leaders and different people, different experts into different countries. It's been a really important area, and I think we've got one of the most diverse and international teams as well. So that's our thing, I think. But speakers also need to be a bit unique in order to stand out.
Because I think about, I go onto a bureau's website and they might have 4,000, 5,000 speakers on that website. So how does it, maybe a speaker that's watching this just now, who's maybe one of those speakers on a bureau website, or maybe they're not at all, maybe they're just kind of doing their own thing. How do they stand out in this very, very competitive market?
I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can stand out and that you can be remembered and memorable. Let me share some of my favorites with you. So I love a unique take on a topic. So there might be a topic that lots of people are talking about, but if somebody's got a unique take on it, I find that interesting and I remember it and I want to know more. So let's take an example. Let's talk about Michelle King, who's the former director of inclusion at Netflix. Now, there's lots of people talking about women in the workplace. There's lots of people saying, Sheryl Sandberg famously said, lean in her book. And that was a new take on it. Everybody's talking about women need to be more confident. Women need to put themselves forward. Women need to do this. Women need to do that, etc., etc., etc. Her take is a bit different. Her take is, don't change the women, change the workplace. Don't fix the women, fix the workplace. Now, this might be something that other people have been talking about in the past, but they haven't done it in that way. And so I love that. I'm thinking, and somebody else has agreed with that. I love that unique take. Thank you, Mahez, agreeing there. So that's one. Let me give you another one. Let's take a big topic that lots of people talk about. Lots of people talk about communication. So why not focus on just one piece in that area? Focus on listening. So there's hostage negotiators focus very much on listening, life and death listening. Chris Voss, Kurt Kinnell, Richard Mullender, that's where they start and they focus and then they can expand on it. So now you're focusing on one thing, the importance of listening, but making it really sexy and exciting because it's now life and death listening rather than just any kind of listening. It's the way you listen to your wife when she speaks. Total focus.
Absolutely, on one level. She's watching this just now, but I mean that is it's fascinating because there's so many different ways you can slice and dice it. Because really, what we're talking about positioning as well. Yes. In a market. If everyone's read Blue Ocean Strategy, you think about how do I get that blue ocean? That's that part of the market no one else is really kind of going at, where there really isn't the same level of competition. Because I think on one level, every speaker is my competition on one level, but really it's a very small number of speakers that are my real competition. I know that I'm usually going in being compared to maybe 2 or 3 other speakers. If I'm being suggested by a bureau, they're suggesting me and they're suggesting 2 or 3 others who may be very different from me, come at the topic from a different perspective as me, but I know I'm going against them. So I know that I need to stand out in some way. One speaker I saw that did this interesting, and a completely different way of doing it, I thought, of standing out, was he has his core topic, which I think was around communication. And every year, he basically has the same core speech, the same, like 60% of it is the same. But every year he will go and target a different industry. So let's say this year is the realtors. So he will write his book on that topic specifically aimed at realtors. He will put together a whole speech with lots of stories and case studies that really resonate with realtors. He will target the realtor associations, realtor industries, do all that for a year, then move on to accountants or something else. And that allows you to, it's amazing because you stay within your lane to a certain extent, but you're also exposed to very different industries as well. But it's a very strategic way of thinking. I think it takes a lot of guts to do that, because you're having to say maybe no to certain things and really focus on a particular industry for a period of time.
I think it's incredibly clever. I think it's really clever to really tailor and be really relevant to an audience. Clients love speakers who tailor for them and really understand their industry. It's so important, more important than ever now, when we're all struggling. The other thing, you mentioned competition. I would like to come back to that. And you know your competition really well. It's so important for speakers to know who their competition is, and to know why they're unique, how they can differ, how they're differentiating against those speakers, so that if they are, if you are put up with different speakers who you know who they are, you can say, yes, this speaker's great and he or she tackles the topic this way, but this is the bit that I cover that is different. This is what's different, because the client then has a genuine choice. It's not cookie cutter speakers. They've got a choice of, actually, I want to go in this direction and that direction. And many speakers don't make that clear on their websites or on their LinkedIn or on their social media. They don't really go deep into what is it that I talk about differently to others. So that's a really great topic.
Now, you've often said this, one this danger that sometimes speakers will come to you, they maybe want to be represented by you, and they say, what do you speak about? And they say, oh, I speak about sales, I speak about communication, I speak about leadership, I speak about blah, blah, blah. And they give you all these kind of things, and like, what? You just can't kind of get your head around it as well. So, I guess from a trainer's perspective, that's quite a useful thing to have, because you can go a little bit wider. But it just doesn't seem to make any sense if you're a speaker. Like, how do you get really knowledgeable as an expert? I know the founder of London Speaker Bureau speaks about this a lot as well. Being known as the expert in your field, or your sub niche or niche in your field as well.
Don't say niche. We're English. It's niche.
Niche. What questions do we have? Let's get some questions on this topic of positioning. Any questions that we have? I know someone's saying, where are the cool backgrounds? We normally have these lovely
yeah, we see. So we don't know who that person is, but it's a LinkedIn user. We used to have cool backgrounds when we were in the studio, but when, as a gesture, because everyone's in lockdown, we're in our home studio. So when we're out of lockdown, we will have our cool studio backgrounds again. Yeah. So somebody's saying here, it is good to always find out what sectors people are from when doing any talk to try add stories. Absolutely.
Totally. And the one I always go for is, if I'm telling like 3 core stories, I will usually choose a story from their industry. I'll choose one to a related industry that has some affinity with that industry, and I'll choose one much, much further that they would never think of as well, just to give that little bit of a blend. And this is another one, from a positioning standpoint. Look to what's kind of going on in the wider market. Which industries and sectors are going to experience growth over the next 12 to 24 months, and which are going to be declining? And think, how can I tailor my topic, the thing I'm known for, to those markets, the ones that are growing? So like healthcare is going to be growing, technology is growing just now, retail's struggling, travel struggling just now. So thinking about how you can lend your creative genius and your expertise to those ones that are really growing.
Actually, and James, and to add to that, absolutely brilliant. I want to add one more thing that makes speakers stand out for me, and this is a very personal one, but I know a lot of clients feel the same way as I do, and I'd be interested to see if anybody listening in agrees. I think humor is so important, and there are not that many speakers that use humor, actually, which is surprising, because a lot of them are funny when they come. It is hard. It's hard to be humorous and not to offend as well.
It's hard for global. No, it's easier. Like, I was actually just doing a case study this morning for a client I spoke for in the Philippines, and the majority of the people attending are Filipinos. So I know that Filipinos like a high humor, high entertainment count on their presentations. So I actually put a lot of humor into that. The one I'm doing next week is from 65 countries. So you got to try and figure out, how do you get humor to work? Then there are some things. Visual humor works very, very well, like in terms of slides and presentations. It's hard to use what we as British tend to use, where we use a lot of play on language. That's hard to do. But absolutely, I love being able to, if I get a chance to really being able to use humor, or just accentuate the humor in parts of the speech.
And actually, do you know what? I think that's actually so important at the moment because we're all a bit
Yeah,
down, really. Even even those of us who are busy working, it's hard because we're not able to go out and enjoy. It's my partner's birthday very soon. In fact, next week. We can't go out to eat anywhere. Everywhere's closed. It's like no. Anyway, we have something else. Indeed, Maria, humor and talent, sharing your gift. I sing opera while talking about the surprise factor of innovation. Wonderful.
wow,
Not
fantastic.
everybody is as funny as Maria.
I agree. I agree.
Well, my
I'm
mother says
the.
I'm funny peculiar, but hey.
I think I must be your. I'm the straight man to your humor, Maria. That must be how it works. Let's talk about our final as we finish up our tools of the week. Maria, what is your tool of the week?
No, yes, you see, we talked about this yesterday, and I said I'll turn my webcam round to show it. And of course, I'd forgotten I'd have all the lights on, so I'm not sure if this is going to work. My tool of the week is actually my new all singing, all dancing camera that I'm not using at the moment. I'm using it to record some online training, and it's fabulous, although it shows every wrinkle. And let's see if I can show you it. It's a Canon XA11. It's there. There you
Oh,
go, and it's
lovely.
got some. But yeah, it's lovely. It's a lovely camera. And I'll tell you what's wonderful about it. So I actually quite like my webcam because it's quite flattering. But the problem with the webcam is that if you move around, it's actually not being too bad today, but if you move around, it doesn't stay in focus, and it doesn't stay
Yeah.
in focus on you. And if you're wanting to write on a flip chart or you're wanting to move around, I mean, we're sitting still, so it's fine to use a webcam. So I've got this all singing, all dancing camera, learning how to use it. And Mary and I have been doing some filming, and we're going to be releasing an online training course in the new year. How exciting is that?
Fantastic. And so what we'll do is if people go to thisweekinevents.com, we'll put a link to this specific camera that Maria has, so you can go and check out. And obviously feel free to reach out to Maria if you've got any questions about cameras and all that kind of stuff as well. So shall I share this my tool of the week
What's
this week?
yours?
Because I actually feel funny. I'm going to ask the anyone that's
You're going
watching
to
this
ask the
just now.
audience.
I need your advice because I'm going to say it's tool of the week. It may not be tool of the week next week or the week after, but it's a tool called Loomly, and it's a social media scheduler. And I've used so many. I've used Hootsuite and Buffer and all these different tools. Basically, it drives me insane that I have to go to all these different platforms to post things. And I just wanted one thing I could use, and it kind of puts it out to the places. So we've been using a tool called Loomly, Loomly, and it's pretty good. And it's not as expensive as the other ones because some of them get crazy, crazy expensive after a while if you've got other members of your team. But like everything, I get frustrated at it because sometimes it doesn't share to different things. But of all the ones I've tried so far, Loomly is definitely cool. So if anyone's got any advice of really great social media tools for syndication, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go back and do everything natively, and that's going to take too much time. I don't know, Maria, what you use. Your members of your team
Well, now you
use for
see,
this.
I'd love to know somebody who's good in social media. I hope somebody's there. Maybe they'll come back to us later if
Yeah,
they're not watching at the moment. So I have a problem with schedulers because my theory, and I don't know about these things, but my theory is that probably the platforms don't like schedulers. They want you to be there. They want you to be posting. They want you to be on the platform looking around. This is my naive logic. I don't know if it's correct. So actually, we don't use schedulers. And I know you know that I'm on social media all the time and you see me
sure.
everywhere. We don't use set schedulers. So yeah, there you go. So I'd love to know from people what is the best thing to do, because I feel that if you use a scheduler, do you get as much interaction? Do you get as much I don't even know what the word is. Engagement. That's the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. So maybe what we need to do, maybe we should get a social media expert and speaker on for our future episodes. If
Yeah.
anyone's watching that's your thing, that's your expertise, feel free to reach out to us.
Yes,
For any of the
please.
show notes we've been talking about today, any of the tools or any of the links to John and John's amazing work, just go to thisweekinevents.com. And I think
Super.
that's us. I think we're finished
That's another week
for the
over. I
day.
know you're off
Another
to
week
speak.
done.
You're off to speak at an event
I'm
now. I
off to go and
know.
give a little talk just now. So that's why I've got the
Fantastic.
fancy clothes on today.
I know. Wonderful. Anyway, lovely to see you. Lovely to see everybody. Let me see if I can play us out with the music because I didn't do that
Yeah.
last week. I'm going to play us out with the music. Bye bye, James.
Bye bye.